Hello and welcome to the shop. This is probably going to be a two-part video. I've got two nice 6-inch pieces of wild olive from the same piece. It was a little bit bigger, but I cut it in half. And what we're going to do, these are 2x2. They've moved a little since they were cut, but they feel pretty dry. What we're going to do is first an exercise in threading with matching grain from top to bottom, and you can see there's very distinct grain pattern here, so we have a lot to work with. And just going to do a little exploration of what it takes, where I can make adjustments to make sure that when I thread the box closed, the grain matches. That's going to be part one. And that's probably enough for a full video. So part two is going to be putting that into practice on the second box, where I'm going to cut the box, thread it, match it, and then we're going to take it multi-axis. That'll be the second video. So it's a very ambitious project. These are not quite square. I think you can probably see. They're very dry. This warping has come about as part of their drying process, I'm pretty sure. Wild grain in here, but olive is very good, dense grain. I believe it'll take threads very nicely. So again, we're going to experiment. Really, this is a lot of experimentation. I'm thinking that we'll get some very beautiful pieces out of it. But what I want to do is first match the grain, make sure I can do it, and that will be its own box. And then once I've matched the grain, I want to make another box, match the grain, and then take it multi-axis. That'll be the second video. This is going to be an interesting experiment. It's going to be challenging, so stick around. Let's see how we do. First part, first piece. So for this first part, 6 inches is a lot for, well, 5 3/4, 5 1/2, 5. That's a lot of wood. I don't necessarily want to make a big, long, tall box. I think we're going to split this into two, put a tenon on this end, and we're going to make 2 boxes. Again, the goal is matching the grain, so that'll give us 2 opportunities to kind of refine our technique, I guess you could say. So we're going to divide it right about there. That would be the lid section of one. This will be the lid section of the other. And we're thinking about having a tenon roughly that deep. This is ballpark. We're just kind of planning out loud. So we're going to split this, put another tenon on it, part this, and I actually might make that lid a little bit deeper, just because I want to make sure that I have room to vary, to work my way deeper or shallower, adjusting threads to try to make the grain match. It's a very distinctive grain pattern. We are going to lose, like this loop here, we're going to lose a lot of that, just because we have to consider the amount of meat that we take out when we part it, plus the fact that there's going to be a tenon on the body side. We're going to have some loss, but we're going to see what we can do. This, again, experimenting. It'll be gorgeous. Olive wood is absolutely stunning, but we're kind of playing with options, things that we can do here. So Something I want to show you very quickly is I managed, essentially by accident, to get the threads to begin to enter right at this mark on the wood. You see that? The thread starts to enter right there. Now, one theory I have about lining up the grain, or having a better chance to line up the grain, is that if I have the body, if I can start my male threads entering at that same spot. See, I've lost a little bit here, and I'm going to lose more with the tenon. But if I can start the male thread entering right around this spot, right in this area, I may be able to get those threads to mate up, or the grain to mate up right away. So we're going to test that out. But first we have to cut our tenon and size it to fit in here. So we'll do those measurements off camera, bring you back to cut the tenon, and then we will thread the male threads and see if by kind of focusing on this area as far as where the threads enter, if that gives us a step up in aligning the grain when we close the box. So let's see what happens. We're going to take this depth right here, which should be a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch. Yeah, we're at 3/8, which is what I wanted. I wanted a fairly deep recess, and we're not going to make the shoulder as deep. That's going to give us some depth, some distance too. But I do want to mark it so that I know where my kind of drop dead line is. So that is maximum depth, but we are running 12 threads per inch, which means I can get 3 full threads by the time I make the depth of 1/4 inch. So I want my threads to go about this deep. And so I'm actually going to cut my tenon this deep. I'll kind of split the difference there so that my little relief cut at the base of the thread, at the neck of the threading, is still above that max depth. Again, the goal here is that when we screw the lid on tight, we align the grain. So understanding that we lost the width of the part, and then the width of the tenon we're going to lose. So it's never going to be exact, but we can get it close enough where when it's screwed tight, the threading, the grains are aligned, and it just looks cleaner. It's just a better look. I've established a chamfer here. I still have room for the max depth that the threads will go. And then there's my little neck. Now adjusting this surface and this surface should give me a full turn's worth of play. Because this is shorter than the actual depth here, I shouldn't have to touch this surface. I should be able to make all of my adjustments just with this little surface right here. So we'll put some threads on this and see where it takes us. All right, so I mentioned earlier, I want the threads to enter right about the same place that they entered on the female side, which is right here. So I've got to get that lined up so that that will happen. The threads are on the opposite side, of course, but they enter here, so I want them to enter here. When I tighten that down to where it's just going to touch, that's roughly where it's going to start cutting threads. That may help us. That's a guess. That's a theory. So all I have to do now is finish setting my thread cutting depths. 46 1/1000ths of an inch. And we will go ahead and start her off and see how she does. We missed that mark a little because I changed the depth 46 1/1000ths of an inch, and that moved where the cutter actually touched the wood. So that may have a bit of an effect on us. Now, one thing I forgot to do was install the bed stop, so I'll pop that in there right now. And what that does is give me the ability to pull the Baxter away and make sure that the threads fit, test fit the lid. That just is a lock, it's a stop. When I back the Baxter up, if I find that I need to recut the threads, I can put it back exactly where it started. So let's see. First of all, we just need to make sure this fits. And it's a little tight. Just a little tight. So we're going to go 2 1/1000ths of an inch deeper. And again, like I said, that bed stop, what that does, so I can come right back exactly where I started. And then all I have to do is make an adjustment here of 2 1/1000ths of an inch. And I can cut those threads again, and hopefully that's just enough to get it to fit. So I have less threads there than I have there, so something's catching up or pinching in here. Right there. That would be probably what's catching, is where that peak of that thread is a little bit wider. To show you that, and that's because I couldn't quite get the cutter. The cutter comes around and comes up against the bottom here, so I didn't quite get that. Let's see if that's where that's catching up. It feels like, wow, Yeah, it feels like that's where it's hanging up, is that wide spot. That, so I can probably take another 1/1000th of an inch here. I think I will. Just a tiny bit deeper, just to give it a little bit more play. But where it's catching is right here. You can see where that's wide, and I can adjust that just by widening the neck here. So again, bed stop lets me put it back exactly where it started, lock it down, add 1/1000th of an inch to the depth, and we'll make one more pass. And that should get us where we need to be. Can't really get the cutter head any further around, so I'll have to clear that with the thin curve parting tool. It's the only way I'm going to be able to clear that little wide spot there. But let's take a look. Once I've got that little pinch point cleared, I think we'll get a full nother turn around, and that might do us and line us up. So we'll get this all changed around. And all right, I'm hoping you can see this. I've actually got a twofold issue here. The one is where we have a little bit of width right here that's not going to want to get down into the bottom of that nice tight corner at the bottom, but also just a hair shy of 46/1000ths of an inch deep on the neck. So we're going to deepen the neck as well so that we get to the bottom of that thread. There shouldn't be no bump right here. That should all be down at the same level, and then we'll come up and skim that so that it's that thin all the way up here. So very, very light cut, very cautious. We're not getting in here all gung-ho. We're coming in here very gently. A little depth. All right, now this shoulder, making adjustments on this shoulder should be what helps control where our grain lines up. That's where we want it. We have less than a quarter of a turn to get it there. We're a little bit wide right there in the neck. I'm not sure if you can see, but the neck actually flares a little bit. So we'll fix that, and then we will take it down just the tiniest bit that way. Oh, we got it closer, so we're going to go a little bit more. At this point, we're just making adjustments. We still have a little bit of width here. I'm not sure if you could see it kind of slow down as I was tightening it, but it's because it's just a hair wider down at the bottom. might have got us what we're looking for. Oh, closer. I'm being very cautious here. I don't want to overshoot it because that ruins the whole thing. Let's do it again. Oh, come on. All right, we'll take a little bit wider of a cut. Not much. We still have, we're deeper here than we are here. I'm not worried about topping out. It's the bottom edge that we're playing with. Look at that. We're closer. Now, we're not going to ever be exact because we removed so much material. But if we can get it where this centers above this, I will consider that a lined grain. I jumped out. That's not a problem. I haven't finished the outside, so I'm not real worried about that. Oh my goodness, we're just a tiny bit, I'm going to switch to the skew chisel and make a knife cut with it. I think I have a little bit finer control than this springy parting tool made out of a Sawzall blade. That's very close. What I'm binding up on is, again, it's just a hair wider at the base here. I think that really has to do with the burr on my parting tool. Just that with a diamond card. And I want a little bit more. It's Very close, but I want to get it around just a hair more. So we'll do one more knife cut and one more slice with the skew chisel. That should put us where we need to be. I would call that a win. I would call that a win. Absolutely. Oh, okay. So, inconclusive as to where I started the threads on the male, because the adjustment of the depth of the threads made the point where it was going to enter different. So inconclusive there. But having less threads on the it was, let's say, having the tenon be not as deep as the mortise where the female threads are allowed me the opportunity to make an adjustment that direction that got us to where we are here, where we can line up those grains pretty impressively. Again, it's never going to be exact, but that's really pretty good. We'll go ahead and finish the lid, finish the outside here, and finish the box. Sometimes I get a piece to this stage and I just have to stop and just admire the wood and how beautiful it is. This olive is absolutely stunning. The finish here is first step was to sand it to 400, and then I hit it with Brad's workbench sanding paste, and then I came in with the Hut Perfect Pen Polishing System PPP. And went over it with the semi-gloss and the gloss. I've got a little tiny bit of polish right there, so we'll buff that out real quick. But just amazing, absolutely stunning finish here. Piece of paper towel and buff that little spot. I just am tickled with how beautiful that finish is. fits nice. Got a nice light but solid lid. Good threads. Guessing that wild olive would thread well was the right guess. So we're just going to hollow this, get the box, the inside of the box finished, and then we will turn it around, put it in a jam, and finish the bottom. And I put a little bead at the bottom of the lid here and at the top of the body. What I may do is reduce this little, kind of was where I stopped cutting so that I didn't run into the chuck. So it's kind of a little hip. What I might do is just reduce that to a bead as well to match the other two. I think that'll set that off really well. And then I've got kind of that inset button or bead in the top there. I think we'll tie that all together. So let's get it done. Let's check it out. I think we'll call that good. I've got a very, very nice surface in there. Good wall thickness. I'm going to do a very minor bit of sanding. I'm not putting finish on the inside. I just take it up to the Brad's Workbench sanding paste. I don't put any finish on the inside in case somebody wants to store something that they might not want any kind of chemicals on. You can leave that to your imagination. So we'll get that finished and we'll get it on a jam. We're very close to fit here on our jam. You can see a slight friction rub there. A little more down. What I would like is to be able to jam it all the way up against the base, even though that base is kind of loose, at least so that I have it as square as possible. This little spot is about to stay. Closer. A little bit here. Almost. Just a hair more off. There's a crack. It's not funny. There's a little bit of inclusion here in a piece of olive. I don't want too much pressure. Of course. And that's what this is always absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so that's just a tiny bit too loose. Fresh fit. So we'll take a picture of it straight. This is one ply. That should just put in a fold. We can just bring something there. We can just stick together. We can take this out for a few moments. We're going to put in there. We're going to get some little bit of help analysis. There we go. All right, line up. We're not cutting. Oh, let's finish this bottom. So I've got this little bead here. I'm going to reduce, but I want to tie into these that's this way. So we'll do it using our bead and tool as tomato. And out of the way. So this was phase one. Set out with a piece of wild olive to see if we could match the grain, or how to match the grain with a threaded lid. And I would count this as an unmitigated success. It worked. This is a beautiful little box. And if you look, we've got grain matching vertically. Now this little spot of, I don't know if it was spalting or if it was a different section, if it was sapwood, I'm not sure, but that we removed a full 1/4 of an inch or more actually of material. So you can see where that kind of continues there. So that was never going to be a really, really perfect match because of the amount of material we removed. However, if you look all the way around, we did really do a very good job of matching up the grain, considering the small size of the box and how much material was removed. Pretty successful. Phase two will be to make a grain matched box that will then be turned multi-axis. That's going to be another video. This is mostly about, can we do it? Can it be done? How can we do it? Developing the procedure. So step one, I think I can call this an unmitigated success. A little wild olive box that turned out absolutely gorgeous. This is a wonderful material to work with. I will be obtaining some more. Thanks for joining me. Remember, just one more pass means put the bowl gouge down. See you next time.